What is good, YouTube? Quinway basketball analysis coming to y'all on analysisplayground.com on YouTube, also on the website. We're going to talk about the rundown of every team in the NBA. This is basically a power rankings, but just more in depth. And that's why I call it the rundown, because usually power rankings will tell you who the best teams and why, but they don't go in depth with injuries, trades, free agency signings, and also how they play this weekend throughout the month. This is the first rundown of November. Milwaukee Bucks, we're going to start off with the best team in the Eastern Conference and the best team in the NBA. We're going to talk about them. They have a 90% win percentage. They have a 6-1 record in the conference. They also have a plus 8.7 point differential, and they are 9-1 after losing to the Atlanta Hawks. I love what I've seen out the Bucks. They defend well, they play well, they really do have a team that's tough to beat. One of the best teams, if not the best team in the entire NBA. We still haven't seen them fully healthy. Chris Middleton, Pat Connaughton, and Jingling Joe Ingles have been out. It's still interesting to see how they are going to play once Middleton comes back. He still needs to get back in shape. He still needs to get back defensively the way he was when the playoffs started against the Bulls. And offensively, it's going to take some time. He had the MCL injury, which hurts your lift on your jump shot, and he also had the wrist injury, which messes up your timing a little bit as you're healing from it. You don't get better from injury, you usually get worse, and these can slow him down and get him off to a slow start. Bucks fans, stay positive. Keep showing them the same love. Keep showing them the same support that you've been showing them. It's going to be a little bit rough of a time seeing them start 9-1. Then he's going to try to come back and try to reintegrate himself within the offense and within the defensive game plans, and it's going to be tough. Probably the first 2 weeks, but the Bucks should be able to do it. They can do it with Javon Carter. If they can do it with Grayson Allen, they definitely can do it with a decent Chris Middleton. I don't expect him to be the all-star form, obviously, after missing about 5 months almost, because we don't know when exactly he's going to come back. But I do expect him to be an effective player and just what they need. They need another perimeter player on the front for threes and for mid-range that can create their own shot. And Middleton already can do that. They just need him to do it effectively and efficiently, and we'll see if he can do that. The Cleveland Cavaliers lost against the Clippers last night. They also had a chance to be tied for the number one record in the NBA at 9-1, but they ended up fumbling that W to the Clippers. They have an 8-2 start. I love what I seen out of this team. They have a 10.9 point differential. Their defense hasn't been as great as the Bucks in my personal opinion, but I also think the offense is a lot better. But the Bucks aren't healthy, and the Cavaliers have all their pieces back with Darius Garland being back. I like what I see out of their offense. You have guys that can set screens like Kevin Love, like Evan Mobley, like Jared Allen. One can roll to the basket, one can roll to the 3-point line. Actually, Evan Mobley can hit a mid range, and Kevin Love can hit a three, a mid range, and a layup, and he can also post up. Jared Allen is just a force in that paint, being able to pass in the pick and roll and also catch lobs that can finish and make things tough. Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell both can handle the ball pretty well and can hit floaters and mid-range and threes, really putting a lot of pressure on the defense and makes it tough for them to be able to be defended the proper way. But they also is a team that can take some tough shots and also can get simplified offense and can be a lot more predictable than other teams in the NBA because they don't have any advanced sets or tactician light sets under JB Bickerstaff. But I love what I see out the Cavaliers. I do think they're a contender this year because they didn't really have to give up much. You also got to give credit to Karis LeVert for being able to start and come off the bench when needed to give them ball handling, playmaking, and offense. And then Dean Wade has been solid for them. I have to mention him because he also has been a solid starter. He's been better to me than Jady Osman has been for them over the last couple years. Atlanta Hawks 7-3. They have a 2.9 point differential. They won their last three. one without Trae Young, which was against the number one seeded Bucks in the entire NBA. This is a tough team to play. Them and the Cavaliers have the best backcourt offensively in the NBA, in my personal opinion. When you look at the fact that Trae Young can get 28 to 30 plus 10 assists, and DeJounte Murray can get 21 to 25 to 30 and 5 to 10 assists plus the rebounds plus the defense. Plus they both are two guards that can really probe and make things tough, and they have the bigs John Collins and Clint Capella, and they also have a solid wing, unlike the Cavaliers and DeAndre Hunter, and they also have AJ Griffin, who's a solid wing. I love what I see out the Atlanta Hawks. They can defend. They're switchable. They have the ability to go big if needed, and they also have guards that put a lot of pressure. You just want DeJounte Murray and Trae Young to be more efficient when it comes to playmaking and scoring. They get easy opportunity. They just need to knock them down more efficiently, and that's their Achilles heels of why they struggle. They're small in the backcourt, but only because of Trae Young, and they also have some defensive problems, but they're young and they still iron out those wrinkles. The Toronto Raptors are 6-5. I love what I've seen out of them. They're 5-5 in their last 10 because they lost their last one, but they have been defiant. They really have a team that doesn't have the greatest talent, don't have a superstar scorer, but Pascal Siakam has grown into that role. Gary Trent Jr. has been a solid shooting guard for them. Scotty Barnes, coming off his rookie year, have been pretty solid too. They also have Fred VanVleet, who's been stepping up his offensive repertoire, using the crossover, using his handle to make his shots a lot easier than taking the tough pull-up threes. But, they still are a predictable team. They don't really have any guys that can really flat out ball offensively, but they've been maintaining by playing great team basketball and playing together on both ends of the court, and that's their key to success, and that's how Nick Nurse like to coach anyway. The Chicago Bulls are top six again. They're 6-6. They have had some minor injury problems. Obviously, not having Lonzo Ball out for the entire season. It seems like Zach LaVine missed some time early in the season. They had some other minor injuries with this roster. They're 5-5. They're a middling team. I expect them to be top six again. I don't really see enough teams in the East being better than them. I think this is probably going to be most likely the top six outside of Miami. I think the only team that could fall out is Chicago, and they can be seventh. But I don't think no team is better than these six teams, including Miami in the NBA Eastern Conference. Chicago has DeMar, who has just been the beast, a closer, can hit the mid-range, can hit the three now efficiently. Zach LaVine has been a bucket his entire career since coming into the league in college and in high school, and he can do that too in the NBA. Vooch has just been dominant to me the last couple games in the paint, getting the rebounds and getting buckets. He's finding his groove now with this team. Sumu has been excellent defensively, getting steals and probing in that paint and killing it in transition alongside Caruso, doing the same thing at the point guard position. You just think they should have a little bit more pop offensively than they did last year because they have more chemistry. And I like the addition of Gordon Dragic, just being a good spark plug off that bench, just energizing them and preparing them for tough games, and really has been what they needed. The Pacers have been a defiant team too. They've just been steadying the wheel of driving this course. We just don't know how good and how bad they really are. Miles Turner has been solid. Tyrese Halliburton has been solid. Chris Duarte has been solid. You also look at Benedict Mathurin. They have to finally make a decision. Do they want to keep some of these guards, or do they want to move them to get another position filled, or do they want to move a guy to another position? They don't need Benedict. They don't need Buddy, and they don't need Chris Duarte all on the team at the same time. Somebody got to go. Same with Miles Turner. They got to make a decision. They don't have to rush, but it is interesting to see what they're going to do in Indiana, as they are a team that should want another lottery pick to add to Tyrese Halliburton and Benedict, probably in the front court, preferably to me, as Miles Turner has improved to be a championship type guy for them since they have added him into the starting lineup over Roy Hibbert, which they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals twice with him at the center position. The New York Knicks big three has been great. Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, and Jalen Brunson has been decent. Their bench has been fine. We knew they'd be coached decent enough. We knew that they'd be a team that's going to fight and claw. Their defense hasn't been nowhere near as great as it was 3 years ago. Their offense has been better than what we expected under a Tom Thibodeau-led team, but they still missing another piece to become elite in the NBA. We'll see if they'll be able to get that. The Wizards have been the team that's been decent. They're 5-6. Bradley Beal has been solid, not great or elite like he was 2 years ago. Porzingis has been a lot better, shooting the three better, finishing a lot better in that paint. You wanted him to have a better rebound season. Was disappointed last year. The Mavericks felt like they had to get rid of him at that point, and he's now having the season that we wanted him to have last year, this season, and that's important. They role players have been decent. Kyle Kuzma and those guys have been pretty solid for them. You expect them to increase their play as the season goes on. Philadelphia lose James Harden for a month, but they still won their last game. They're 5-5 in their last 10 games, which is an improvement. And B was 30-10 last night. They also look at the fact that Tyrese Maxey has played better, Tobias has played better, their role players have played better, ultimately leading into them having a better second 2 weeks, second half of the season so far compared to the first. And their schedule has become a lot more light when it comes to competition. They've been able to take advantage of that with injuries and other guys just missing time. They've been able to win those games they should and need to win, and that does matter if they want to get back into the upper echelon of teams in the Eastern Conference by the time the season is over. The Brooklyn Nets, no Kyrie. Ben Simmons finally returned back. No chemistry. Seth Curry still is out. This team is just a mess. Remember, there's only 8 teams that's going to be able to make the playoffs. When you look at the top 6 teams, they are the best teams in the Eastern Conference. Only teams that can really fight for the last 2 spots to me is Philly, Brooklyn, and Miami. I think Miami definitely is going to make it. Brooklyn is the one that I'm concerned about. I think Philly going to make it when James Harden gets there. I think Brooklyn is the team that misses out just because they have health concerns. Kyrie has always been a nutcase head-wise. He also has been injury-prone, just like Kevin Durant, Nicholas Claxton, those guys just not big in that paint. I know they have offensive weapons. I know they can get hot. I know that Kevin Durant is having one of his best seasons statistically, especially when it comes to scoring the basketball, but he does that every year. He's been lacking defensively. The team seems a little predictable. They want to shoot a bunch of tough jumpers and a bunch of threes, and I just don't know how the fit of Ben Simmons is going to work out. They have a big three. They have the offensive firepower, but they just have to stay healthy. They're getting older. They just don't have the same enthusiasm, just not as happy playing with each other, just not enjoying it. Maybe Ime can push them. Maybe another coach can push them into the right direction. They have the talent to be a great team. They just don't have the motivation, and I think that's the problem with them. The Miami Heat, they just have a lot of minor injuries. Kyle Lowry has been solid. Jimmy Butler has been great. Tyler Hero has been streaky. Duncan Robinson has been injured in the beginning of the season, but they still lost 2 since he's been back. This team has enough talent to be dangerous. I still think they need a center to put Bam at the power forward. Bam is just not great or dominant enough as an interior player, as a scorer, or as a defensive player anymore. I think they need to upgrade the center spot, whether it's just having another rim protector or a floor spacer that can protect the rim like Dwayne Dedmon, just a better version of Dwayne Dedmon will really help this Miami Heat team. Or if Bam can actually turn into that and they can put somebody else at the power forward position, can really help this team hit another level. But you know, Eric Spoelstra is going to find a way to play around with this roster to figure out what works and what doesn't work, and putting the right lineups out there could help. Or maybe Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero just need to shoot better, and Jimmy Butler need to go into playoff Butler a little earlier than he probably would have thought. But it's early in the season. It's only 11 games. There's no time to panic. They're only a 2-game win streak away from being back into the playoff picture. And remember, the play-in tournament still does exist, so they can always get it right at the right time like they did last year and figure out how to win basketball games when it matters most, and that's in the second half of the season. The Charlotte Hornets still without LaMelo Ball. Nothing really to say with them. They've been terrible because of that, and I don't really know if they can fix it. They have guys like Gordon Hayward and Terry Rozier that's doing their best, but they just have a lack of talent to compete with the best teams in the league and the best teams in the Eastern Conference, as this conference is top-heavy now, and it's not that easy to make the playoffs like it was 7 to 8 years ago. The Pistons is just a young team. I like what I've seen out of this team, though. To be honest, I like the fact that they have better offensive player. They have better floor spacing. They got to figure out their big rotation. Having Nerlens, having Isaiah Stewart, and having Marvin Bagley is going to be an issue because they're all different type of bigs. They all have different roles and different types. I guess it won't be that terrible, but they got to find out which one they really want to thrive in that starting lineup. Cade hasn't been too much better than he was as a rookie, in my personal opinion. Offensively, his mid range is getting better. His fadeaway is getting better, but all around, he just hasn't been as aggressive. Ivy has been the perfect fit for this team. It's giving them an injection of life and energy that they just didn't have, especially in transition, especially when it comes to attacking, and just give them more of an uproar when it comes to offensive juice. In Orlando Magic, they're terrible just because they're young, they're naive, they make a lot of turnover, they take a lot of bad shots. They don't play well together yet because it's their first season together. It's a chemistry thing, it's a growth thing, it's a youth thing, and they just get beat because they wet under the ears, and it makes sense for them to lose games early while they're still learning how to play together, still learning how to grow, how to defend, how to play well offensively. They're competitive, they're staying in games, they're keeping games close, which is a positive sign for them in the Pistons. But, ultimately you still have a talent gap. You still have a superstar gap that these teams need to fill in the future, but their guys will grow into those roles, and that's why it's important to look at the encouraging signs of these two teams at the bottom of the East, because they have a lot of signs of what a team should be competitively. They just don't have the talent, the coaching to really get them over the top, just because their young players ain't at the level they need to be intellectually, IQ wise, and offensively and defensively where they need to be as an execution and game playing level. At this point in their roster isn't final. You got about 2 to 3 more years before those teams become more dangerous. But I like the signs that they have been showing. When you look at the Western Conference, Utah Jazz, they're 9-3. Nobody expected the Jazz to be this high. Everybody suspected the Jazz to be at the bottom, but their shooting had just been amazing. They have been absolutely stroking it from three. You look at Mike Conley, you look at Jordan Clarkson, you look at Laurie Markkinen, just blazing people from three. The pick and roll game, the mid range game, they just attacking and firing on all cylinders, and they defending pretty decent. It's kind of hard when they can come at you and really blitz you like that offensively. The Suns haven't been breaking down a little bit. Chris Paul gets injured. Cameron Johnson goes down. DeAndre Ayton has been aloof. He hasn't really been aggressive. He hasn't really been looking for a shot. Hasn't been looking to be dominant after getting his contract extension. You expect to see more out of him as a centerpiece for this team. He was a number one pick over Luka Doncic, over Trae Young and those guys. And you just want to see him be more assertive offensively, as a focal point of this offense, especially with Chris Paul out and getting older. Same with Mikal Bridges, same with Devin Booker. You expect them to take their games to an all-star level at this point because they've been around for some years. They know the game. They know what it takes to win. As they 7-3, number two in the Western Conference, you just expect them to take their game to elite level at their positions and in their game as a team too, just so they can win a title in Phoenix before all this become they missed their time and they missed their ceiling and they didn't win a title type of team. The surprise team number two is the Portland Trailblazers. They're 7-3 and they missed some time and they still was able to go 7-3 in their last 10 games. That's impressive. Their schedule is getting a little tougher. I wonder if they can continue to win at this level. They came back down to earth a little bit, but they still got off to such a great start. Simons has been great. Damian Lillard has been solid when he has played. You want him to take his time. Ain't no rush, especially because they got Gary Payton II playing well. You look at Yusuf Nurkic has been a solid body in that paint. And you look at their role players, Sharp and those guys have been pretty solid. Also, the Denver Nuggets got off to a way better start winning their last three after having a terrible beginning to the season. Caldwell Pope has been solid. Bruce Brown has been solid. Jamal Murray has shot the three ball better in the mid range, a lot better. Jokic hasn't been as dominant as he's been the last couple seasons, but he's still been a triple double watch player the last couple games and still has been less dominant offensively, but more well rounded because of the teammates that he has on his roster. Aaron Gordon has been better cutting to the basket, not relying on being a 3-and-D guy, just being a guy that's all over the place offensively, cutting, hitting mid ranges, hitting threes, getting out in transition, having fun. I just love what I've seen out of Denver. They needed a start like this. Michael Porter has also been great from three, just stroking that thing, letting that thing fly from the fingertip, just getting all his body all over the place. Some of his threes are falling, leaning all over the place type of shots, and they just dropping in all net with a perfect release. Is ridiculous to watch. Michael Porter Jr. shoot the three ball. Dallas Mavericks also got off to a better start since the second half of the season. The first month has almost been going by. They're 6-3 now. They won their last four after starting off 2-3. They 6-3 now. And Luka Doncic has just been a beast. He reminds me of James Harden and Westbrook, the two guys that won MVP those seasons and led those teams to top six teams in the Western Conference those seasons. He's doing the same thing, getting the rebounds, getting the points, and leading the NBA in scoring. This looks like his first scoring championship is going to be guaranteed at this point, just because Luka, just is how he always played. He's just taking less threes. But last night took a lot of threes and they were just dropping. So, just having multiple weapons when you attack and having multiple moves just make you more unstoppable, more harder to guard. And the more attention you garner and gain, the more easier it is for your teammates to get easier buckets and easier opportunities, and that just makes them better. And by Luka being a pass first guy, he's always going to be looking to find people if he can't score, and it just puts way more pressure and way more optimism when it comes to the defense trying to figure out what is Luka's going to do next. And anytime they make a mistake, either he's going to make them pay with a floater or mid-range or a three, or he's going to make them pay by making the right decision by facilitating and finding the right guy. And it just makes for a head scratching type of way to defend when you just don't know how they're going to come and attack you every possession. Unpredictability is something that's special in the NBA. Then you look at the Memphis Grizzlies. They lost their last one to my Celtics, but they have played better along the season as the season has went on. They're 7-4 this season. Desmond Bain has been huge, has shown improvement this year. I also look at the fact that their small forward has played better than the other one that has been injured. I like the fact that their center position, Steven Adams had held it down for them. Zaire Williams, I should say, hasn't played yet, and they have other guys that have missed time, and they have really rectified that just by playing together. Ja Morant has had another MVP start to the season, hitting mid ranges now, hitting floaters, hitting the threes, just having a more well-rounded game offensively now, and he's still facilitating to the best of his ability. He still lacks that other superstar. Remember, Jaren Jackson is also missing time, and none of it has mattered at this point. The Clippers, they're 6-5. They also went 5-5 in their last 10. They have had a decent start. No Kawhi Leonard for the last 5 games, I should say. Really has been a struggle for them because of that. We don't know how good or how elite they are as a team, but I do like the fact that they still competing. Tyronn Lue has really been a better coach for them and a better fit for them other than Doc Rivers. Really was a great change for them overall as a team, and it has really shown when they have less talent or Kawhi Leonard or Paul George is out. Maybe if they can get healthy, maybe they can just be a little bit more dangerous. The Pelicans are 5-5. You expect them to be better. They got off to a great start. They was making noise, and everybody was really buying into the hype. They have really calmed down a lot. They're 5-5 because they lost their last two in a row. They don't look like a championship contender. They just look like a dark horse team that can be a playoff team again this year. You want to see your success be built upon and continue throughout the seasons. Last year they finished around the same spot. You want them to move up, if anything, because they didn't have Zion last year for the entire season, and this year they have Zion for more games than they had last year, and you want that to be a significant improvement. I know the NBA gets better and tougher every year, so you have to bring your A game and put the best roster together that you can. I feel like David Griffin has put a great roster around Zion. They have shooters, they have defenders like Alvarado. They have a center in Jonas that can really space the floor and get out the paint for Zion. They have a superstar they can build a franchise around. They have complementary stars like Ingram. They can create his own shot. Same with CJ. So they don't have to rely on Zion to create and do everything because those guys can do it by themselves. And they also have Devontae Graham that can be a spark plug off that bench and give them spacing too. And they also have Herb Jones who has the knee injury, but he's a solid guy that can defend and also hit shots when guys create for him. So they have a deep roster. They have one of the best rosters in the league. They just have to play together and they just have to defend. And that's just something they just don't do for a whole 48 minutes. And I think that's their biggest problem so far is trying to find a way to be great offensively, but also being great defensively. And it started with Zion. All these guys follow him. This is his team. This is his franchise. He was the number one pick. He was the best player in the draft still to me when he's fully powered and fully bulldozing and wrecking balling everybody. But he has to stay healthy. He has to play smarter. I seen him posting a little bit more. I see him going with a little mid range a little bit more. He has to find ways not to just be a guy that just slingshotting himself into people and just getting injured every 2 weeks because they need this franchise to have a healthy superstar that can lead them to a title, the first in NBA history. The Spurs, they got off to a great start. Now they lost their last four in a row. They're 5-6. They below 500. I said they'd get off to a great start just because of unpredictability. Guys just didn't know how to defend them. They didn't know how to play. Now scouts are looking at them. Now they figure out how this team likes to play, how they like to defend, and now they just out game planning them and they out talenting in this team just don't have enough, and it's unfortunate. But the Spurs, they're going to compete, they're going to be feisty, they're going to be pesky, and they're going to make things tough, and they're going to make you work for every W that you have against them, and that's a good thing, and that's a good way to build culture, and that's a culture that Greg Popovich always tried to instill in his players and his coaching staff, and that's why they have great success when they leave. The Minnesota Timberwolves, Big Bear, didn't help improve them that much. They went from being a top 5 defense all the way down to a top 10 defense. Their offense is the problem too. They haven't looked good with Gobert in the starting lineup offensively. Anthony Edwards hasn't looked like the same. He hasn't looked like he had a significant improvement. D'Angelo Russell looked worse than he ever looked. Karl Anthony Towns has been a steady force. Still looks terrible defensively. He still looks great offensively, but that's never been a problem in his career. He's been a great offensive player since day one as a rookie, averaging 18 points a game for the season and winning Rookie of the Year in a landslide. They have to figure out what they're going to do with Anthony Edwards. They're going to have to figure out what they're going to do with D'Angelo Russell in that backcourt, and what they're going to do at that 3 position. Will it be McDaniels? Will it be Torian Prince? They have to figure that out if they want to be a deadly team in this league, and that's something that you have to consider if you're Minnesota Timberwolves fan. What is the best option? Is it Jordan Clarkson? Is it Mike Conley trade? Is it somebody out there that can really fix that point guard situation? Somebody that can really handle the ball, be a great decision maker, and also hit the mid range in a 3 and be able to pro with layups and floaters. It'll be an ideal fit for the Timberwolves. I know D'Angelo Russell can do it, but he just way more inconsistent, way more streaky, and way less of a defender than you want at that point guard position. More fit for a 6-man role that can get you a spark than being a guy who can run your offense through and be a sub coach on the court, just a floor general. They need a floor general like a Chris Paul type of player. I think Mike Conley would be perfect for them. Golden State, they got off to a bad start. They're 3-7 in their last 10. They're negative 3.3 in win point differential. They just struggling to get buckets. They're struggling to defend. When you infuse young team with veterans, the veterans have done what they're supposed to. Lineups with Steph, Clay, Draymond, and Andrew Wiggins have been great. Lineups without them have been terrible. James Wiseman look a little slow. He doesn't look like a dominant big in this league. Doesn't even look like a starter. That's why they got Kevon Looney in there still. Moses Moody looks solid. Kaminga doesn't look good defensively or offensively. Jordan Poole look a little lost out there, trying to figure out, do we want to score, do we want to facilitate, or do we just want to hide in the shadow of Steph? Steph has been onslaughting buckets, has looked like an MVP this year. Clay looks lost defensively and offensively too. Just trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work. They look like a team that don't seem like they played a lot together, even though they have for the most part. But guys have bigger roles, guys have bigger opportunities, and that's really just been crushing them. The competition has gotten better in the Western Conference, and the Warriors just haven't rose up to it. It seems like they're playing down to competition instead of playing their best basketball, and that's just not Warriors like. That's just not like their culture. They're gonna have to up it up offensively and to me defensively if they really want to turn this season around. And once they do it, they're going to have to do it consistently if they want to come out the West this year. I understand what people said last year, that Denver team was a little beat up. Luka and them are predictable last year. They are a little predictable this year. And then the Grizzlies just was a bad, easy matchup for the Warriors stylistically. But it's different this year because every year is different in the playoffs. And you don't want to be in that play-in range when you got to fight through the play-ins with a veteran team that can get a little injury prone because they already had significant injuries to their big guys like Draymond, and Clay. They don't want to get in a series where they have to fight their way through the play-in, fight their way through the first 3 rounds the tough way, and then still win the finals. So that wouldn't be ideal for them. And then the Sacramento Kings, they're 3-6. I love what I've seen out of the Kings so far, even though they lost their last one. They're a young team. They 2 years away from being 2 years away. Still got to improve defensively. Still got to improve their offense. But I love what I've seen out of this young team. They're really clicking. As a mediocre team, they're better than a team like the Spurs. They're obviously on the same level as a team as like OKC, who's at the same level. We still waiting to see Chet, so I don't really know how to really judge the Thunder. They lost their last 3 games in a row, but they also don't have Chet Holmgren yet. He's going to be a big integral part of what they're going to do offensively and defensively. I like what I see out of Gideon and Shea has been in the MVP conversation just because he doesn't have the talent that these other teams have, but he ain't making excuses. He's not whining. He's not complaining. He's just going out there playing basketball and competing, and he's having a fantastic season so far this year. And this team isn't even fully healthy yet. As Jalen Williams also miss some time, he's going to come back and give them another guy that can handle the ball and create his own shot. And Lugan's Dort has been solid. Seems like he's declined defensively to me, and offensively, you just want to see him take another step forward in the right direction consistently. As the season just started, we don't really know how long it's going to last. Just like we seen it happen last year. And then the Lakers has been abysmal. They lost their last 3. LeBron has been injured. AD doesn't look dominant or a force. LeBron doesn't look dominant from the perimeter or inside the paint as he's got slower and became more predictable. He wants to step back, or he just wants the mid-range, or he just wants transition shots. Lonnie Walker has been a solid addition. Russell Westbrook looked better off that bench, but he's going against worse competition. He just needs to figure out how he's going to play with LeBron and AD, because if he wants to be in the closing lineup in the fourth quarter, that's going to be his strongest suit. They might have to put LeBron back at point and try to get another shooter. I think the Miles Turner trade again will help, having a guy like Buddy Hield to give them a shooter and give them a center that can protect the rim a little bit will definitely help AD in that paint, and it also will give them a guy that can hit mid-range and 3 and space the floor for LeBron and AD. I don't think it still makes them a contender, but it gives them what they're missing. And then the Houston Rockets, they're 2-9. They're not a good team. They're not supposed to be good. They're supposed to be bad. They're missing a big that can really protect the rim. They don't have that with Şengün. I think he's more of a 4 in today's game because he can shoot the 3 and he also can post a little bit. Still going to have to make incremental improvements in those areas if he wants to be a real threat. in that paint as a big, but he can still play the four in today's game because he's mobile enough on the perimeter. To me, I know he's not a great defender, wasn't drafted as one, but as an offensive weapon, he can be versatile. And Jabari Smith hasn't been great to me either, but he has been solid when it comes to offensive production. You expect double figures from a starter, but you just want to see more from the three, more from the mid range, and more from the finishing because he has the opportunity. And Jalen Green, to me, I just don't know what to make out of him. He looked better the last 2 weeks than he did the first 2 weeks, but not really overly excited. Kevin Porter also not overly excited about him. I also wanted to talk about the Celtics. I love my Celtics. Y'all know that I'm a Celtics fan. I'm proud of them. They're 7-3. They've been going against some of the toughest teams in the NBA, and they've been able to beat them. Just beat Memphis the other night. He had to tell Deuce Tatum, "I don't want you to get in my head. I got to make sure little Deuce gets some rest so he can go to school in the morning." So I'm proud of Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. I'm still an advocate of Malcolm Brogdon starting. I do think we need another playmaker slash another scorer in that starting lineup. He's more aggro than a guy like Derek White. Derek White is more of a facilitator, more of a passive aggressive player. I think Malcolm Brogdon has a great balance, knowing when to pass, knowing when to score, and he's still a solid enough defender to where he can be a difference maker on that end of the court. Plus, he also is a solid rebounder, and he has the size of Derek White and Marcus Smart. And Marcus Smart is more of a defender than a scorer, and that can allow him to play more of a two position. Plus, he can be a great spot up shooter, while Malcolm Brogdon can be a prober, penetrator, slash the floor spacer because he can hit a spot up three. I think he just fits stylistically better with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and Al Horford than other teams. And I like Luke Cornett is another guy to look out for. He's a 7-footer, can protect the rim, can finish around the basket with two hands because he's so big, and can just be a great deterrent at that in the paint. And I also do like the fact that guys like Peyton Pritchard and other guys on this bench also has a chance to grow. If the bench does ever shake up a little bit, they still do have Blake Griffin. They still do have Peyton Pritchard. They still have one of the best teams in the entire league in general. And I love what I'm seeing out of the depth, out of the star player Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and the fact that we can make small changes to our lineups and our rotations, and we can also improve because of that. Other than that, Quinway Basketball Analysis signing out with the rundown. Like, comment, subscribe, and share. Hopefully, I can see you guys tomorrow on Wednesday. Another busy basketball day. Quinn Wade Basketball Analysis signing out on AnalysisPlayground.com and on the Analysis Playground. And see y'all later.